the team that I'm going to predict right now where they're going, this team is winning the World Series. You're probably going to disagree with me, but I see that this is the team of destiny. I love those team of destiny ideas. And I think this year it is going to be the Cardinals. I think there's just so much magic happening at them right now. It's clicking on all cylinders. They're looking real good, Steve.
They are looking good, but as easily as they're looking good, it can flip a switch and not look as good in about 3 weeks from now, right? I mean, they have the offensive firepower. Arenado, probably the leading guy in Goldschmidt for the MVP, maybe a Triple Crown winner if he can pass Schwarber in home runs. He's leading in the other two categories. He's having a tremendous year. Then you have the complementary pieces with the young players who are scoring, and their pitching is on point right now, right? But at the end of the day, when you come down to a 3 or 5 game series, one bounce this way, one bounce that way can make a big difference in a 3 game series. So I won't disagree with you. I think they have a legit shot getting in and getting the opportunity, and they just have to face the right teams. It's got to line up really well for them. But like I said, I just think the Dodgers are too strong. I think they have too many players and they're too deep. They can switch out players from series to series and stay fresh. And I just think that they're the team to beat in the National League, and it'll be a big upset for any team in the National League to beat the Dodgers in a 7 game series, because in a 7 game series, the most superior team usually wins.
I'm not advocating people to sell their Tesla stock and to go bet on the Cardinals for the World Series, not by any stretch. But I'm always, being a baseball blogger at heart in my past life, I love the stories behind the stories, and man, the Cardinals are running rampant with them. I mean, so you brought up Goldschmidt right now, and he's neck and neck in all 3 of those categories right now. Freeman is still close in there for the average. He could take it, even though average is meaningless, but they still love to use it for Triple Crown. It's not OPS or anything like that. Schwarber, I think he will take over Schwarber on the home run just because he's more likely going to stay healthy, where Schwarber probably won't, but you never know with that. And Mr. Alonso for the Mets, and he could end up not leading in any of those categories or get the Triple Crown, much the way we had Miggy Cabrera actually pull it off with the Tigers. But I think that'd be a great, great story. But imagine, the whole idea of a Triple Crown winner in the NL that has not happened in like 10,000 years, being second to the fact of what Albert Pujols is pulling off this year. The man has dipped into the fountain of youth, and very likely he's going to hit his 700th home run this year, which we did not see coming at the beginning of the year. Like, he was a feel good. I'm going to sign off with the Cardinals, finish off my career there, come and pinch hits, do the wave, my last stroll. And he has been on fire in the second half.
Yeah, before I get to Pujols, I'll start with Goldschmidt. I don't think Goldschmidt cares about the fanfare, to be honest with you. He's going about his business. He's a pro's pro. He's one of my favorite guys that I love to watch, because he goes about his business every day. He plays the game. He goes there to win, and whatever happens, happens. It's the same facial expression all the time. He'll smile on occasion, but he is a guy that has been Mr. Consistency over the long haul. So I don't even think he cares that Albert's getting all the fanfare. He probably wants that. It takes the pressure off of him, and Albert's the one who takes it on. Now, Albert's just a different story, right? I mean, he was going back to St. Louis. That's where he started his career. We didn't know about the home run deal. He's facing a lot of lefties. He's pinch hitting off the bench. He's DHing when lefties are in the lineup, because that's who he hits well. And at the end of the day, hopefully he gets to 700. It's a great story. He's a tremendous player. And, it's been fun watching the last 20 plus years from the time that I was playing all the way till now as a storybook ending. And wouldn't it be a storybook ending if the Cardinals did win the World Series and he was part of that club?
It kind of rips. I remember when Goldschmidt got traded to the Cards, and I said to myself, how can you let this guy go? Like, you got to find a way to keep him. Like, he was the heart and soul of the team. And from the second that the D-backs lost him, the moment the Cardinals got him, I think Cardinals have been rejoicing every day since. He's been nothing but consistent for them day in and day out. I love watching the guy as well. I think just hustle, consistency. And like you said, and he doesn't worry about any of that. I've read interviews with him, and he's just saying, listen, just let's go play the game, whatever. I don't think he can care less. I think that as long as his team wins, If he won the World Series and he went 0 for 50 for the rest of the season, I don't think he'd lose 1 ounce of sleep. First of all, he's got 300 million or whatever to rest his head on. But on that token, he's actually playing because he loves the game. And that's where him, Arenado, another guy, known for hustle, known for playing hard. And the Cardinals find these kind of guys. It just seems every year that's the kind of team they put together. On the same token, they find these pitchers that they seem to realize somehow they come pitch for us and they're just going to take off. So there's a reason why the Cardinals are always in contention. But with all these stories going on, I my gut's telling me they're going to do something special this year, regardless of whether Pujols gets the 700, whether Goldschmidt gets the Triple Crown. But it's going to be based a lot on health. Now, where I saw very distinctly watching in the second half now, the whole idea of these trades and where a trade can inflate you or deflate you. Brewers fans are right now up in arms over the trade of Josh Hader. They felt that was the pin that deflated the balloon. Now, Josh was not having his best season versus previous years. He started off like a house on fire and had different moments. I was still quite shocked that they had moved him. And I think that the shock has still followed him over to San Diego and playing on a new team, playing on the West Coast. There's a lot that goes into it. And I don't think people realize, you take Josh and, his whole career on Milwaukee, going to the Padres in that environment, then versus Montgomery, leaving New York, coming to St. Louis, trades. And you've been through this before, and maybe you could talk about this. Trades can affect different guys in different kind of ways. And I think those two are classic examples.
Yeah, well, Josh has been traded before, not in the big leagues, but he's been traded in the minor leagues. He got drafted by Baltimore, traded to Houston. Houston, actually, when David Stearns was the assistant GM in Houston, traded him and Adrian Hauser to the Brewers, and then got the Brewers job a year later. So Josh was traded from Houston to Milwaukee. He's got a comfort level in Milwaukee since he's been there in 18. He knows how things run. He's been a core player in that clubhouse with many of these young guys who he's come up with, who he's played with, and built that trust, so to speak, between the players. Not that he doesn't have trust in San Diego, but now you get taken out of your comfort zone. You go into a different coast to play. You go into a different environment in the clubhouse, whether that's good, bad, or indifferent. I don't know. I'm not in the clubhouse with San Diego, but I do know that they have a little bit more high profile players over there. And, now the usage gets changed a little bit because you're in a new team and the manager uses you a little bit different than what you're accustomed to. So there's all of these factors. Is like a whirlwind that you have to get used to in a hurry. And sometimes players just don't adjust as fast as fans or front office or coaches want them to. And it takes some time for a comfort level to set in. I don't know if that's going on with Josh or not. I just know that he started out tremendously in the first half of the season, hit a rocky road. Nobody ever knows what somebody's health is. If he's battling something, it could be a leg, it could be whatever, it could be a back, it could be anything. And maybe he's pitching through it, maybe he's not. So maybe that tails into a factor of why he hasn't been pitching as well as of late, or when the trade happens. Everybody can speculate all of these different things, and that's what fans do, right? We all speculate, like, what is going on with him? This is not the same player. How can this trade happen? But there are a lot of things. Family dynamic comes into it. Josh just had a new baby 3 months ago. So maybe he's not getting enough sleep at home because he's taking care of the baby and he's helping the wife out. Like, there's so many things that kind of play into this. So for anybody to kind of get in Josh's head and speculate what's going on, that's fine for them to do. But until you know every single dynamic that's going on in a player's life, on the field, off the field, and getting comfortable in a new place that you've been traded to, or it takes time, is anybody's guess. But the Montgomery thing, again, I'm not in his shoes. I don't know. Pitching in New York's a different animal. He goes from a place maybe where there was a lot of pressure every fifth day to go out there and perform, to St. Louis, different ballpark, right? Different dimensions. A fly ball for Montgomery to right field at 325 feet, a home run, and maybe a 3-run homer that changes the complex of a game. Where if he gives up a 325-foot fly ball in St. Louis, it's caught on the grass for an out. and it doesn't change the dynamic. So there are many different things. Playing against teams who have better lineups, in my opinion, in the AL East on a consistent basis and pitch every 5 days, as opposed to, facing Cincinnati and
Pirates.
Pittsburgh, and the Cubs. Like, it's a different lineup. You get to prepare a little bit differently for American League East lineups and National League Central lineups, and that plays into it. Like, I've always said this too. When you go back and you look at Cy Young Award winners, and you look at the divisions that they play in, and you look at the lineups that they face, go back and look at how many starts they had against their own division and how weak a division may be that particular year as opposed to somebody else. So there are a lot of factors that kind of intertwine and play into some of these things of how successful guys are. And that's why maybe when they go to a different ball club, it's not as successful, right? I mean, at the end of the day, when you're in the National League West, you're facing the Dodgers, the Padres, the Diamondbacks, and you have to pitch in Colorado, which is not an easy feat to do. So, like, these are, again, factors that the average fan doesn't take into account when trades happen or when a person signs in a specific spot. So at the end of the day, give guys a break when you don't think they're playing well, because there's a lot going on in a player's life, and he's a human too, as opposed to just a baseball player.
Well, I think when you're a Yankees fan and you're looking at Montgomery, looking at it looks like the second coming of Cy Young, but he's been lights out since the second he's got there, versus picking up an outfielder that has not even played one inning for you yet. That can feel quite frustrating. And in their minds, they're saying, well, Montgomery could have done this for us. So imagine we had all those stats, except he wasn't doing it. If he was, he wouldn't have left. So people kind of don't think of it that way. With Josh, was that his first child? Do you know offhand?
It was, yes.
Uh-huh. So for any of us who are fathers and have been through the process, first child, if you look at now the timeline of about to give birth, giving birth, that I'm thinking of the timeline roughly in my head, Steve. Looks pretty similar to me now as far as where things started to go a little bit. And it's not like they traded him for a bag of balls. They got back a return, and Rogers has been pitching pretty well for the Brewers. But I think it's like, my feeling is, when you're watching bullpens out there as a fan, when you have someone like Hader, who is the established leader of that Brewers bullpen, it's like the chairman of the board arrives, and literally it's like getting rid of the chairman. So even if you get back somebody who's very good, he's not your guy. He's not the guy who's been there. He's not the guy who's kept everybody together. So that's where it can, even if his stats would have stayed very similar, and like this last game out, he was lights out and got his 3 outs, but other games have not gone as well for him. But they still have that consistency, especially in a pennant race, to change the personal dynamics. All I'm thinking of at this point, Steve, is coming to the end of the season, Hader may be in a position to save a game for the Padres and actually knock out the Brewers from the playoffs. That's where it could go.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's what you weigh when you make these trades. You trade into a team that you might be in contention with. At the time, I think the Brewers had a 4 or 5 game lead in the division, and they really thought that they could ride it out and win the division, and they wouldn't have to be fighting for this wild card spot. Now the dynamics changed 5 weeks later, and he has an opportunity to pitch and knock out the Brewers.
That's one of the things that Steve always says: never trade your division, because you don't want to face them like 10,000 times. But that being said, if Hader has the opportunity to knock the team out, I'm sure he's going to go for it in a moment. The same way, if the Yankees and Cards met in the World Series, Montgomery's going to be extra pumped for that one. But that being said, if it's in New York City, he may not like the results. So it can kind of go both ways. But there's nothing worse than losing a game, losing a season, losing a series from the guy that you gave up. And that's what all teams are trying to avoid.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, that's why trades within divisions are really hard for GMs to make, because they don't want that guy to come back and bite them over the next course of a couple of years. Maybe if it's a free agent at the end of the year, you're more willing to do it if you get the right return back. But like a Soto, they were never going to trade him to the New York Mets, right? I mean, I don't care what the Mets offered him as far as players go back to Washington. They just weren't going to do it because he has two plus years that he would have to face the Mets. So you have to go with your head into the best team that you're going to get the return from without giving your division opponent more firepower against you in the years to come. So a lot of dynamics that go into trades. I think a lot of thinking and the computer plays a little bit part of that as well.
We will talk about this when the season actually ends and we go to the start of the playoffs. But as of right now, I'm going to be telling you it's the Cardinals and Yankees in the World Series, and the Cardinals are going to win the World Series. That's where I'm at right now. Sorry, folks, but the universe tells me what it tells me, So it'll be fun to see regardless how right or wrong I could be.